Have you ever had any regrets or second thoughts about something you did? I know that I have. There was a time many years ago, I think I remember back in the 1970s, those crazy days, where I wore some of you are old enough to remember this, yellow, striped, bell-bottom pants to a fancy restaurant and was promptly asked to leave. And there was my first Christmas Eve at my new church in Fort Wayne. And you know what I did? I set the Advent wreath on fire. I told the people I just confused the story of the burning bush with the story of Jesus' birth. Oh, I know how we all wasted 2 hours watching a bad movie and we wanted our money back. Yeah. There was that candy bar we swiped and we thought no one was looking when we were 8 years old. And we still remember the spanking. Sometimes we have regrets for far more important, life-changing choices that we wish we had never made. There was the business deal that went bad, the job that led to nowhere, the school which we should never have attended. Now, implicit in all of our regrets is the assumption we're smarter now. We know better. We are new and improved. We would never make such mistakes again. We would never be so stupid and so impulsive. And I am sure that this is how the crowds felt a few days after they had welcomed Jesus into Jerusalem, waving their palm branches, laying their cloaks before him on the ground, before Jesus, cheering Hosanna, that he was the Messiah. They looked forward to for Jesus to do great things. But soon they had second thoughts and questioned what they had done. For when Jesus did not turn out to be the kind of hero they expected, they regretted what they had done. They should never bothered with those palm branches and cloaks and cheers and songs. And their cheers became cries. Not of hail him, but of nail him. And their praising became hazing. And their desire to glorify him became demands to crucify him. And the disciples also had regrets. They had followed Jesus for 3 years through thick and thin. They were there with the crowds, waving their branches, shouting praises. They could not wait for the day when Jesus would finally set up his kingdom and give them their own personal reserved skyboxes. But during this last week in Jerusalem, they too began to have second thoughts. When the going got tough and the tide turned against Jesus, they began to regret what they had gotten themselves into. If they had only known what was going to happen to Jesus, they would never have agreed to follow him. So when Jesus' enemies showed up in the Garden of Gethsemane to arrest Jesus, what did they do? They fled into the night. Oh, we wish we could have been there, right? We would not have been fooled like the crowds who had gone so overboard with the parade. We would have known what was coming. We would have remembered those 3 times when Jesus predicted that he was going to be arrested and crucified in Jerusalem. And we would have known of the coming betrayal, the 30 pieces of silver, the monkey trial, the denial by Peter, the cock crowing, the crown of thorns, the nails, the sour wine, the taunting criminals, the darkness, and the death, we wouldn't have had any regrets because we wouldn't have been fooled in the first place. Peter at one point, did have the right idea, didn't he? Do you remember that time in Caesarea Philippi when Jesus predicted his coming arrest and crucifixion? Peter's first impulse was to do what any of us would do. Jesus, do not do it. Jesus, if you go to Jerusalem like the prophets did before you, you will surely be killed. Jesus, you're too good to lose like this. Jesus, surely you could come up with a better way to be the Messiah. But Jesus would not be talked out of it. Jesus did not say, "Oh yeah, Peter, thanks. Thanks for the warning and setting me right on this. I won't go to Jerusalem." No, Jesus would have nothing to do with it. Looking Peter in the eye, Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan." Everyone else would have regrets and second thoughts, but not Jesus. If there is anything that the events of this Holy Week make clear, Jesus was absolutely determined to go through with this. There would be no hesitation. There would be no second thoughts. There would be no regrets. Jesus' march to the cross would be unstoppable. Even in the garden. Remember when he questioned his Father's will? Even before any second thoughts could make him waver, he finally prayed, "Father, not my will, but your will be done." For Jesus, there would be no regrets. No regrets? Really? He sure seems to have regrets in Mark's account of the Passion. Take some time this week and go read it. It's not long. And after hanging there on the cross for 6 hours, after being mocked by those who regretted cheering for him several days before, Jesus cries with a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Is Jesus having second thoughts? Wondering whether he had been duped? Was this time for Jesus to play his trump card? After all, he was the Son of God, the second person of the Trinity. He could have just pulled out those nails and jumped off the cross and grabbed the sword off of one of the Roman soldiers and wiped out his enemies like some Captain Marvel comic book superhero. Iron Man? Spider-Man? Take your pick. But he didn't. Jesus was determined to reach his goal. He would accomplish his goal no matter what. There would be no regret, no second thoughts, no plan B. No derailing of the train, no detour and no change in direction. Repeatedly, Jesus reminds us in all the Gospels that this was necessary. It had to happen like this. Even if this had happened among us today, even if we knew everything in advance, even if we were there with the crowd shouting Hosanna, we would still have been there, would be there a few days later, shouting, "Crucify him!" We're always second-guessing ourselves, aren't we? We're always qualifying our offers, calculating our commitments. We're always trying to come out ahead. We're always looking for the winning side. We love what will love us in return. We give to others because they have something to give back to us. We invest our time, talent, and treasure in something that will add to our bottom line. We are not in this world to lose. We are here to win. We always want to know what's in it for us. We will do unto others as we would like them to do unto us. Because it's always about us, isn't it? It's always about our self-interest. And when it's always about us, we must always be carefully counting the cost, carefully playing the game, trying to look good so that we will get back what we give, because we do not want to have any regrets. No wonder we have the world we have. No wonder there are so few we can trust. No wonder friendships do not last. Promises are not kept, and debts are not repaid. We are constantly trying to put our best foot forward, to create a good impression, to hand out some more IOUs so that we can one day collect. We're not ready to care for someone or something that does not care for us. I mean, tit for tat, right? Quid pro quo, right? In dramatic contrast to this, as St. Paul reminds us in today's first reading from Philippians, Jesus is all in. Jesus is totally committed. Jesus has no second thoughts, no regrets. He goes all the way to the cross, and there we see what happens when someone gives himself away without reservation. There we see the consequences of total and complete love. There we see someone who has no basis to cover, no bottom line to protect, and no self-interest to promote. There we see what is frankly impossible for the rest of us. Giving ourselves away without regard for ourselves. Forgetting ourselves for the sake of remembering another. Forgiving those who despise us. Dying for those who hate us. There we see love that is frankly humanly impossible. Such love, finally, can only be of God. And at last, after almost 15 chapters and the Gospel of Mark almost to its conclusion, someone finally gets it. Someone finally sees Jesus for who he really is. And ironically, surprisingly, it is an outsider, a pagan, one of those unbelieving heathen who finally makes the climactic confession of the Gospel of Mark. I got too excited about the climactic confession. For that Roman centurion looks up at Jesus and says those unforgettable words. Truly, this man is God's Son. And for the first time in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus does not command them to shut up. No, because this at last on the cross is the truth of God. For there we see God. That is God. God is loving the world there with no regrets. God is Jesus, not holding back, without reservation, no second thoughts, no hesitation. And even people like us who are always quick to cut and run, who are always counting the cost, holding back, and wanting to make sure we come out ahead. Even people like us who are willing to throw Jesus under the bus and switch to a different team. Jesus still loves. Jesus still dies for us. And what a difference that makes. Not only for how we make our way through these days of Holy Week, but for every week that follows. For if God loves us like this, if God does not hold back, if God does not have second thoughts and embraces us with no regret, we can do the same. We have nothing to fear. We are free, as we talked extensively about this morning in our adult class. We are free from always having to be right, confident of the future. We are unafraid of what tomorrow will bring. We do not have to worry about covering our bases. We do not have to wait until everything looks safe, always having second thoughts or a plan B in our back pocket, just in case. No. Instead, we can be generous people, giving ourselves away to a world in need. And we do not have to walk through this most holy of weeks and all of its worship services with a morbid sense of dreariness. Oh, Pastor, it all seems so sad and tragic. Life is dark enough without all of this. No. Instead, we can relish the story. We can wave our branches. We can shout our hosannas. We can wash one another's feet. We can relive the night of betrayal. We can eat at the Last Supper. We can hear the cock crow and the 30 pieces of silver hit the floor. We can shout, "Crucify him," and still take comfort in it all. Because this is what love looks like. Because it is for just such culprits like us that Jesus came to love with no regrets. And for that, what can we say on this Palm Sunday? Joining the crowds, not only shouting Hosanna, but thanks be to God